one of the things we believe that self-image, your identity, has to be consistent with your goals.
It does.
That who you are is more important than what you do, and most people just start with what we do. Welcome to the Growth Project. This is a podcast brought to you by AMPLOS. I am Dr. Milt Lowder, joined today by Dr. Gabby Caviedes. Welcome to the show. You've been a regular presence since you started. I guess that is one thing. What do you think? You've never done a podcast prior, maybe?
No, never done a podcast prior. I mean, I helped some friends in the past with their podcast and was never at the forefront of delivering content on the podcast, though. So it's been a cool learning experience, and it's been fun, honestly.
Well, we've gotten good feedback and reviews. If this is your first time tuning in, the Growth Project, as I said, is a byproduct or created by AMPLOS. We are a performance psychology practice located in Greenville, South Carolina. And very simply, we exist to help you be better and pursue better. We help you find the harmony between your work and your life, believing that the mental skills that we teach and believe in, that we've been teaching for over 20 years, help you be better for the things and the people that matter most, and help you pursue better and keep your dreams greater than your memories. And so what we try to do with this podcast is just bring you relevant content and science and information. And we've been on this series, I guess, since the start of the new year, looking at reflection and how reflection informs your goals for the new year, and really challenging the concept of resolutions and why just even thinking about those in a certain way limits your growth. And then I think Drew and you spent a couple of sessions around habits and tracking behaviors and why that's in feedback is so important. And then boundaries, that, just what I believe creativity within structure leads to freedom. And so you have to put boundaries in your life to know what to say yes to and what to say no to. And this one today, I think, is so important because, and maybe it should have been the first one.
Yeah.
This is more around how your identity informs and influences your decisions and your behaviors, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. So give me why, just in your own words, Gabby, why is this so important?
Well, I think a lot of times we base our behaviors off of social norms, off of what we think others expect of us, or maybe even things that we expect of ourselves. And it's not necessarily who we are at our core. And so that's where kind of the misalignment occurs. And you can only stay motivated towards things you don't value for so long.
That's such a powerful line. And I think, to me, especially, I just think about even my children's ages at 22 and 20 and 17, that we all have to go through that transition in life, that it has to become my values, my beliefs, my identity. And some people never get there. But I think that is what we're hoping to. It's hard to act inconsistent with who you think you are and what you truly believe. Yeah. And, in simple terms, what did Jimmy Johnson say in NASCAR after he followed Jeff Gordon? He said, you can't drive another man's car.
Right.
And so today is really about helping you create a positive identity about who you are, and let that be a powerful part of your growth journey.
Yeah, who you are and who you want to be, too. If you aren't currently living in alignment with your values or who you want to be, then that's a clarity moment to say, okay, well, the behavior changes that I'm establishing at the beginning of the year need to align with what I value and who I want to become.
So give us an example, Gabby, of maybe what we hear or how this might show up in our office or how we're working with people.
Yeah, well, I think it's easy to show up to work and say you want to be disciplined, or say you're going to knock out your entire list of tasks that day and be super productive and stay motivated the whole day, but that can only sustain you for so long. And you can show up, do the right things, and go through your task, but if you aren't doing it because you genuinely value the work that you're doing, then that's going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to a lack of motivation in the long term.
Yeah, and so it's hard to act on a consistent basis, if that makes sense, with who you are and what you believe. And so what you're saying is, this is good for me. Those who know me well know I'm not the most organized. I'm maybe not the most detail oriented. And if I show up each day with this specific focus of here's what I'm going to do today and here's what I need, like today is going to finally be the day, but it's inconsistent with my self-image, I'm going to fall back to who I believe I am. Go back to the self-talk conversations we've had over the years. 70% of our thoughts tend to be automatic and negative. And so one of the things we know to be true, if you tell yourself something long enough, you'll believe it.
Yeah.
And as you think, so you are. Our thoughts and our thoughts about ourselves and our identity really set limits on our growth. It sets limits on our ability to achieve the things we really want to achieve. And so instead of, so the image and the identity is, hey, I am disciplined. It's like me to get these things accomplished. It's like me to stay focused. It's like me to be organized. It's like me to be whatever, like to get in shape. It's like me to make healthy decisions. It's like me to be patient in my relationships. It's like me to show up in these certain ways. Yeah. That is really difficult to do when your overwhelming evidence in your life believes that it's not like you.
Right.
And one of the things that we hold on to is your brain will develop the picture that you paint with which you attach the most emotion. And so we often have emotions of anxiety and fear, and our brain is looking for reasons that it's not like us.
Yeah. And I think that that's where a lot of people become demotivated, because they start to say things to themselves like, well, I'm just not an organized person, or I'm just... I don't have the work ethic that I used to have. Then they classify themselves as not a hard worker. So it's almost the reverse of this happening that is hindering growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we talk about labels set limits, and think about these words in your life. I never can seem to follow through. I never can seem to get in shape. I never can make. And so those extreme words really set limits. And so this tension that we feel as human beings is, how do we accept the limitations of being human without accepting the limits that being human imposes upon us?
Yeah.
That's the constant tension that I feel is I want to have permission to be human. I want to accept the limitations of being human, but I do not want to accept the limits that being human imposes upon me. And so one of the things we believe that self-image, your identity, has to be consistent with your goals.
It does.
That who you are is more important than what you do, and most people just start with what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even from a young age, we're told to pick a career. What do you want to be when you grow up? Not who do I want to be when I grow up? And that in and of itself is such a powerful statement there of saying, okay, well, I'm labeling myself at 5 years old as, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a veterinarian. But there's no value placed on that. It's just sounds cool.
And we wonder why we have such a hard time in America, especially separating who we are from what we do. And this constant state of discouragement and frustration, because sometimes I'm not proud of what I'm doing, and even more so, I'm not proud of who I am.
Yeah. And that's why I think too, we get to a certain stage in our life, usually we see this in the late 20s, where you've gone through college or training and you've started your career and you realize, this isn't what I want. This isn't who I am. And a lot of people have that kind of moment, late 20s, early 30s, where they're questioning, was this the right path? Who am I? What am I doing?
Well, I hate to tell you, those questions that start in the 20s and 30s, there's so many, especially men that I've worked with over the years, they've never solved it. That they've chased a goal, they've chased a dream, they've chased financial success without clear and meaningful thought around what's really important. This constant thought that who you are becoming is so much more important than what you are accomplishing. And I think that's what I love about this topic. Yeah. That it's challenging.
It is.
But in this goal-oriented culture we live in, chasing those goals kind of may achieve short-term success, but does not really relate to long-term significance. And so how do we get to this point in America, especially? I know we're listened to all over the world, which still kind of cracks me up. But how do we get to this approach, and what are some limitations with it?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing we need to do is classify what it is to to take this doing first approach. What are the problems with just acting to achieve success or acting to achieve financial gains versus acting in accordance with who you are? So what does it look like to act out of doing? And that's going to be goal setting without meaning.
Yeah.
So just saying, I want to be top of the food chain. I want to be on the leadership team at my company or get the next promotion because it's status or financial gain, right?
Or it's what I'm just supposed to do. It's what's expected of me.
Yeah. Yeah. Those expectations that you think are there on yourself or that others hold of you, right? Living up to others' expectations or your own. Hustle. And this is something that, I battle with is we love hustle.
Yeah, it's one of our core values.
It's one of our core values, but it's got to have direction.
Yeah.
It's got to have meaning. If I'm just grinding day in, day out, and I don't feel a sense of purpose to that grind, I'm going to burn myself out. I'm going to be exhausted, and happiness and well-being is going to plummet.
So what's the quote? I think I read it first in Phil Jackson's book. Vision without action is still just a dream. Action without vision is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And sometimes in life, that fight or flight kicks in and we just get busy. And we avoid the things that really matter, and we just kind of get in this rut of just busyness. And I think that's what you're saying is you can accomplish some things short term,
right?
But you may look back when it's over, whatever that is you're pursuing, and have a little bit of regret that it wasn't your dream. It wasn't your life. It wasn't your values. It wasn't your faith. That you never took that step of maturity and gave yourself permission to pause and think and dream a little bit and then make decisions that are aligned with that.
Yeah. And that's, you're touching on why this is unsustainable there is that it's, you're putting in a lot of effort. You're not getting any fulfillment out of it. And that drains you. And then, of course, you also have this friction that you're creating between yourself and the life that you're living. And, it's like you said, I wake up every day, I go through my routines, I do the things I believe I'm supposed to do, but it's not really who I am or what I want to be doing. And that's going to cause a lot of friction and dissatisfaction.
I keep going to quotes because it's just how my brain works and operates. But that Nietzsche, he who has a why can suffer almost anyhow. To me, when I think about it in light of what we're talking today, when I know my why and I know my purpose, I know why I was created, I know why I exist, I know what fulfills me, I get really excited about how it's going to come to life, how it's going to come put into place, instead of just here's what I got to do today, or here's what I do. I think that's the key point. That is sustainable. Doesn't mean you're going to have highs and lows, but that's sustainable over time.
Yeah. And to that point, one thing I actually had a friend say to me recently was along this line of purpose, and we were talking about, what is kind of our purpose in the work that we're doing. And they said to me, so I think sometimes I don't have a purpose. I'm just in my career. And I've heard that a couple times now, or more recently in the last couple of years, people just feeling like there isn't a purpose. And I'm not sure that that's the case. I think that the challenge there is to say, maybe I haven't reflected enough to understand what my purpose is or what my values are to drive my purpose.
Yeah, but with that, I think go back to that vision without action and action without vision. Sometimes people just sit back and they reflect too much.
Yeah,
and they're waiting for your purpose just to show up. And I think that's, if I just look at my life, I've done a lot of different things.
Yeah,
and followed interest and followed passions, and some have worked out and some have not. But I think that's part of it as well. It isn't sitting life has to be experienced.
Yeah.
And you only get that by going out and finding out what inspires you. What are you getting good feedback on? What do people say? Hey, these seem to be your gifts. And if you aren't busy living, if you aren't doing those things, you aren't going to get that feedback. And so on the opposite end of reflection is I sit around and think too much. And I don't ever take action.
Right.
I don't ever get any data. I don't ever get any inputs. I just am kind of waiting to be inspired. I see that with a lot of young people. You got to go experience life a little bit and get some feedback, and data is no, this this is like me, this is not like me.
Yeah.
This is when I'm at my best. This is when I struggle. This is what motivates me. This is what demotivates me.
Yeah.
So that's the tension there is we believe in the reflection and vision. We also believe in getting busy doing, but letting that inform a little bit of your identity. When are you at your best?
Yeah. That's a great approach to take on this, and helps me even reflecting on my life. I think back, I wasn't always somebody who was deemed type A or organized or structured, disciplined. There was a time point in my life, and it was really at the start of grad school, where I shifted and said, when am I at my best? And it's when I am organized, when I do have a plan. And now, if I had to think about how people describe me or how I would describe myself, that is one of those core values, core staples of who I am. It's disciplined, efficient. But for the first half of my life, that was not the case. Yeah. It takes, like you said, experiences, growth and then reflection to understand. And adversity. Yeah.
And you have to face some adversity to really find out what you're made of.
You do.
That's if I get back to my farming and the disruption, that native seed sits in that ground for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It isn't until it faces heat. It isn't until it faces fire. It isn't until it faces adversity. It isn't until it gets some sunlight shining on it that it germinates and blooms.
Right.
And I think that's, I guess, what, be curious about you, about what's important, about what you value. And then have the courage to live according to what you believe.
Yeah. So let's shift into that, into this idea of how do you go from just doing, from, just waking up and going through the motions to really being and living in accordance with who you are. Milt, what comes to mind for you?
To me, my first thought is I can get busy doing. But I think it is, when I think about my own perspective, it's why we think vision is so important. I've written kind of 3 vision statements in my life. It's part of that process to identify the vision. And this last one I wrote has nothing to do with what I'm accomplishing.
Yeah.
It has nothing to. It's not even mentioned that I'm a psychologist.
Yeah.
But hopefully it's about who I am becoming and how am I helping others along the way. And through that, it clarifies my values. It clarifies and informs some decisions.
Yeah.
Now, the boundaries piece, when you believe your vision is to help others and encourage others to be relevant, to be inspired, to be interested in others, then there's a whole big world of people that are out there. But I think that to me is taking some time and reflecting, what is your vision? What are your values? What are the things you hold dear? And when those values come into conflict, which one wins?
I think values is such an important area here. And we prioritize this a lot in our work and emphasize it a lot, kind of establishing what your values are, defining them, but not only defining them, but saying how they show up.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a powerful practice, because so many people, I think, values, what are your values? We hear it all the time. And we're like, oh, yeah, I know my values. But at the end of the day, most people, I don't think, could list off what are your top 3 to 5 core values.
No. And they can know their companies.
Yeah.
But even then in a companies, they don't know really what they are or what they mean or what they look like.
Right.
They just say, well, I value this, or I value integrity, or I value whatever that may be. But they haven't thought about, what does it really look like and what does it mean to them? I think that's, as you're thinking about your vision and your values, what do these words really mean? But how do they show up at work? How do they show up at home? How do they show up in areas of temptation in your life? How do they show up in making decisions of how you treat others?
Right.
I think that's what's so important.
Yeah. And this is what is so great about when the identity is clear, is, like you said, those decisions become easier. You know how you want to show up in situations. You know what your actions should look like in accordance with those values, because you put in the time thinking about it and really making it a part of who you are. So, that's a clear benefit here. And then, like you said, your boundaries are going to get stronger because you have a degree of faith in what I will and will not allow.
Yes. Yeah, and you want peace of mind. That's kind of knowing, like having that courage again to live to what you believe.
Yeah.
and standing up for what you believe. And it doesn't mean that we aren't respectful of others and we don't have an open mind and we aren't curious about where they come from, that we impose our thoughts and beliefs and values on others. But when I have an appreciation for who I am and I give myself permission to be human and live according to what I believe, I give others permission to do the same. And I think we spend so much time trying to live up to others' expectations or how I should think or what I should be doing or what I need to do or what I can't do, that we don't ever really think about here's what I really believe and here's who I really want to be, and then align our decisions and behaviors with that. Yeah.
That's why I have so much respect for people who start companies, right? Because nobody tells you what those principles are going to be up front. You know, when you go into a job and they say, here's what we stand for. But if you go through the process of creating something, building something, even building a family, right? Yes. What are our family values?
Yeah.
And you have to establish that. And it's a moment of growth for you.
Yeah. That's so good that we don't want you to get so busy making that living. You forget about making the life, as John Wooden says. And so we hope you're thinking about not only your values for work or for your business, but more so for your home and for your family and for your children and for your relationships. And so let's put a little bit of science with this. So our friends DC and Ryan with self-determination theory, help me understand what that means in terms of those key areas of autonomy and competence and relatedness.
Yeah, so let's start with autonomy, right? This is that feeling of control in your life. And when you have clearly identified who you are at your core, that choice then reflects who you are. You chose those core values. You chose those labels and those guiding principles.
And dismiss the labels that don't fit.
Exactly, yeah. So you've taken control back of who you are. It's no longer dictated by, who your parents expect you to be, or who your spouse expects you to be, or your boss expects you to be. It's who you are and who you want to be. And that is a powerful motivator right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the competence piece.
Yeah. The competence now says, well, I've established who I am and I know I can grow in these areas. I know I can get better in these areas. And think that seeing yourself then improve in those dimensions is going to build that competence even more. And again, ties into motivation directly there to continue being that person.
Yeah, that self-efficacy is constantly reinforced that I believe I have what it takes and that I believe my effort and commitment to grow in these areas, to act according to what I believe, that's going to lead to success and accomplishment that I really want.
Yeah. And then the final piece here is that relatedness and recognizing how these values and who you are supports your relationships and how you're showing up and benefits your relationships, makes them stronger, makes you more connected to the people in your life that matter the most.
Yeah, and that one's so important because when, taking out of context, if I just think about autonomy, it's about me and what I believe and about who I am and what I value. And it's about that leads to a lot of narcissistic behavior.
Yeah.
If you don't think about how it allows you to relate and connect with other people. I think that's one of the reasons loneliness has become such an epidemic, that so many people are focused on I. Here's what I believe, and here's what I'm going to do, and here's what I'm going to accomplish, and here's what I can do, that it comes at the cost of relationships with others. And so I love how they included the relatedness, that we were created to be in connection and in community with others. Yeah. And how do my values align with that?
Yeah. Yeah, and that takes some time too, and reflecting when you're establishing who you are and what those values are is, how do others need me to show up? Do I need to be more empathetic in my life? Do I need to be more present? And then that's going to fulfill that relatedness piece. So thinking about that, and like you said, taking it away from yourself a little bit and saying, what do others need from me? Yeah. And what do I value about that?
Yeah, so just a good example, even in my own life, but I see it a lot of the people I work with, that we value providing for a family, and we value being present with the family.
Yeah.
And so when those values come into conflict, which they do on a consistent basis, which one wins?
Yeah.
And I think without some reflection, then you're going to just keep doing what you've always done.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we want you to think deeply and meaningfully of not only what you believe and not only that you have what it takes, and it's like you to act according to what you believe. But how does this impact my relationships? So hopefully this vision and value, this identity is about being a good team player. Is about being not only who you want to be, but being who you are in a way that impacts others and uplifts others and inspires others and lets others feel loved by you.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about the shift from doing to being, establishing, who you want to be, what your values will be. So what we really want to do here is reinforce the impact of this and how once you establish your identity, that's going to translate to behaviors and ultimately outcomes and success. And like you said at the beginning, Milt, it may have been beneficial to do this at the beginning of this series.
Yeah, and hopefully you've gotten some data and feedback.
Yeah. But I think this is still a great time to talk about this, because if you have created a New Year's resolution or created some goals for this year and you're, making progress towards them, hopefully tracking that progress and reflecting on what you can do better, now you can start to say, okay, are these behaviors in line with my identity? So the process we want you to walk through here is first establish your identity. Who are you? Who do I believe I am? Then what behaviors back up that identity? What actions do I need to take to show others and to show myself that I am disciplined or I am a hard worker, or whatever those values are?
And then be mindful of when you take those behaviors, what are the results? What are moments that you show up and act according to that, and what gets in the way?
Yeah.
And making sure through this process of identity formation that you get good feedback, get good data, and you're mindful. You can't lie to yourself. And you can't set unrealistic expectations. I always make the right decision. I never do this, right? We're just human beings, and our willpower, no matter how consistent we're living with our identity, our willpower is not strong enough to make the right decision, the best decision every time. Yeah,
we're going to step out and we're going to act in ways that don't necessarily align with our identity or our core values, and that's okay. It's a part of the process. But like you said, it's learning from that and saying, okay, well, gosh, I said I'm a humble person, but I really just spent a good chunk of time bragging about myself in that conversation in a non-humble way, and saying, okay, well, next time I'm going to reel that down a notch, so that you are reflecting and saying, okay, here are the actions that are working for me versus the ones against me. How do I refine and make myself better over time?
Press on, keep the fight. It's so easy to give up and become discouraged when you act. When you like that, your brain wants to throw you back to what you've always done and who you always are. And we're trying to encourage you to break through those limits that you've imposed about yourself by the things you've told yourself your whole life. Be mindful of those. Some are true, some are not, but really be reflective. When you act consistent or inconsistent, how do you keep fighting through? How do you not let that defeat you and discourage you? To me, that's the key point of these behaviors and feedback and data and results, to make sure it continues to give you feedback. Is this like me or it's not like me? But not let that set a limit on your growth.
And over time, consistency is going to be the byproduct of your alignment, right? So over time, when you become more consistent with the actions that are in line with your identity, that's going to further enhance that belief in yourself and that trust that I am who I say I am, and I am living the life that I want to be living. So I think consistency comes from this alignment.
Yeah, and so this gives me a great chance to bring my new favorite quote, because harmony is the word that we're talking about, that harmony between what I do and what I believe. And that James Michener quote that has just really struck me and hit me and inspired me is this, and I've used it before, I think, on the podcast. The master in the art of living makes little distinction between their work and their play, their labor and their leisure, their mind and their body, their information and recreation, their love and their religion. They hardly know which is which. They simply pursue their vision of excellence in all that they do, leaving others to decide whether they are working or playing. To them, they are always doing both. And when I think about that harmony, like I'm walking consistently every day, not only with who I am, but my values, my decisions, my behaviors are all aligned with that. And so I don't know whether I'm working or playing, but how I show up, there's a thread of who I am, that consistency And congruency, if you see me at work, if you see me at Clemson, if you see me with my family, if you see me at church, there's a thread about who I am that's evident.
Yeah. You're not completely different people in different settings.
Yeah.
You show up to a certain degree the same, right? And people know, like, hey, this is Milt.
Yeah, the good and the bad and the ugly.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, one of mine is passionate. And I had a young guy introducing me to a group of young people. It's like, hey, Milt's passion shows up in a lot of different ways. And it's if he's at work or if he's at home or if he's coaching church basketball, he's passionate. And that's good and bad in some different areas.
Yeah.
Gabby, this has been, to me, a really powerful conversation. But as our listeners trying to process this and digest this, what are some questions that they can really use to help formulate and create that identity?
Yeah. Well, we want to give you guys 3 good questions to kind of start this process of identifying who you are. And the first thing we want you to ask yourself is, who do I want to be before I ask what I want to achieve?
Yeah. I love it. It's so hard. I mean, like, what have we always talked to our kids about? Hey, where are you going to go to school? Where are you going to college? What are you going to do? How are you going to provide for yourself? What sport do you want to play? What music do you want? I mean, it's all about what. Yeah. And it's very little about who.
Right.
And so I love this question. Who do I want to become before I ask what do I want to achieve?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great starting point. And again, it's going to take some rewiring because we have grown up in a world where it's, what do you want to be when you grow up, not who do you want to be when you grow up. So starting with that question is a great one. And the second would be, what values do I want my daily actions to reflect? So again, if somebody were to come up to you and say, hey, what are your 3 to 5 core values? Being able to know what those are. And define them, like you said, your definition, not the textbook, Merriam-Webster definition, but what do those words mean to you?
I have this image of you walking downtown Greenville with a microphone and Connor's following you around. It's like, what are your core values to kind of run this experiment?
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Be prepared for that question if you see Gabby coming.
I think it would be a great little fun thing to do.
And these are questions that also matter for your work and your family. I mean, talking to your partner around what values do we have? Who do we want to become? Who do we what does it feel like to be loved in our home, to grow up in our home? Those are questions that just a little bit of tweaking can help you look at this in different ways. Yeah. But the fundamental belief we have that these principles we teach are not going to happen through you unless they first happen within you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the third and final question here is actually going to relate kind of to our last podcast episode about boundaries, which is, what behaviors would someone with that identity naturally protect? So what behaviors would you make sure you carry out day in and day out? And what would your boundaries be so that you can act in accordance with who you are? Yeah.
Yeah. And so these are such great questions. I've so enjoyed the conversation. You hopefully our listeners that have been following along have seen our added components of a digital handout or a PDF to kind of help you formulate that question. And so you can download those and work through some of these questions that we're providing to you. As always, please give us feedback. Please like us, or I think that's right. I always mess that up.
Like, subscribe, follow.
That's it. I always
there
forget subscribe. And please share this if you're finding it relevant in your life. And so, final thoughts and comments.
Yeah, I think that's the great wrap up there is use these practical tools that we're providing to put this into action. I've been using the tracker online myself. I have found it to be a great way to hold myself accountable. So I'm excited to get some resources out on this topic as well, and just help our listeners really move into that action stage of, okay, we've got the awareness, let's drive action and hold ourselves accountable.
100%. So I can't iterate how important this is at any age.
Yeah.
And hopefully, maybe who you are, who you thought you were at age 20 is different than who you are and what you believe at age 50. Hopefully you're evolving over time. And so if this is the first time you're hearing this, no matter what age, spend some time thinking about this and getting some feedback. Life can only be lived, and we are all a work in progress. So that's the challenge that I would have. We haven't accomplished or not yet who we want to be, but we can all pursue a better version of ourselves.
Yeah, I love that.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.